Do you like mazes? How about philosophy, elves, and Greek gods? Now, if you said yes to all of these, you have a bit of a problem. Where, oh where, could you possibly find all these things mixed together? Well, wonder no longer, because you, my friend, can find them all and much more in Planescape. If you asked your average Dungeons & Dragons fan what their favorite campaign setting is, I'm willing to bet a large majority would say Planescape, and what's not to love? It was D&D's wildest experiment, a setting where gods and demons mingle and philosophy isn't just talk, it's the core of the setting. Planescape has obviously been a hit with people, so I've always wondered why there hasn't been more done with it. Some of the most incredible stories told in games have been in this setting, so you'd think there'd be more here, right? So today we're going to look into the history of how Planescape was made, what makes the universe so incredible, and finally explore what's been going on with the series in recent years to understand whatever happened to Planescape. Hi everyone, my name is Otto and welcome to Exits Examined. We'll be exploring franchises, series, and more as their prime time has seemingly come to an end. If that sounds good to you, there's a like and subscribe button below. So, Planescape as a setting is massive. It's literally a multiverse that encompasses all of D&D's realms of existence. So, where do you even start with something like this? Well, let's start at the beginning. In the far-off worlds of the 70s and 80s, Dungeons & Dragons was releasing a ton of new campaign settings, but almost all of them were high fantasy. By the late 80s, TSR, the company that owned D&D, was inspired by the success of Dark Sun and Ravenloft, and they realized that there was a market for more unconventional settings. At that point, fans were pretty eager for more information on the other planes of existence in the universe, and the 1987 Manual of the Planes, while a valuable resource, was nothing like a true campaign setting. So this confluence of factors sparked an idea, a campaign setting entirely devoted to the other planes of existence. And in what can only be described as an act of fate, the reins were handed to Zeb Cook, whose vision would shape something unlike anything that had been seen in D&D before or really even after. I decided I wanted to do something really different and give the planes a more surreal treatment. Aside from the tons of history I usually read, some of the other inspirations were experimental fiction, mysticism, bizarre films, and lots of philosophy 101, just enough to be dangerous. The concept was pretty straightforward: to design a new campaign setting that utilized the Manual of Planes while ensuring the survival of low-level characters. On top of this, the words demon or devil couldn't be used because we have to remember that the whole satanic panic was a thing then. Cook envisioned the setting's aesthetic by drawing inspiration from sources like the dark, oppressive imaginary prisons, the fantastical creatures of Brian Froud's illustrations, and the dreamlike imagery of surrealist art. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but this distinctive, dreamy art style definitely helps sell the world as something totally unique, and it's somehow very ordinary and pedestrian with this slight otherworldly tinge. It's hard to describe. Released in 1994, the initial experience of opening the Planescape box set was just unlike anything else, revealing vast maps of the multiverse and insane diagrams of dimensions, and this is all just scratching the surface. So what makes this setting so unique? Well, pretty much everything in here is just a breeding grounds of ideas and endlessly fascinating concepts. Cook wanted a more adult experience in Planescape. Not adult as in violence, but about challenging the players to think and engage with complex ideas that question their own existence. And this, of course, all comes out in the philosophy. The importance of philosophy starts in the central setting, which is, of course, Sigil. Shaped like a colossal donut, or a torus for the more simple-minded of you out there, it's a floating city above an impossibly tall spire. Known as the City of Doors, there are countless portals in the city leading to every corner of the multiverse. Accessible only through portals, it remains impervious to invasion, yet those without a portal key can find themselves trapped, which has earned it the nickname of the Cage. The city's central location and commitment to neutrality attracts a diverse populace, and you can see everything here. Mind flayers, demons, angels, beings that should not exist side by side are doing just that, and this is a testament to its role as a crossroads of the multiverse. That's not to say that there aren't traditional races like elves and dwarves here, but Planescape encourages the use of more intriguing native races, such as the tieflings. Now, some unfamiliar with the setting might be wondering why in the world I'm calling it Sigil and not Sigil, right? Well, apparently Cook mispronounced it and they just ran with it. Now, if you want to continue calling it Sigil, I won't have a problem with it, but I'm just looking out for you because I don't want you to get mazed. What is mazed? Well, to answer that, we have to talk about the one and only Lady of Pain. The Lady of Pain rules the city and is a striking figure floating above the ground with a bunch of blades surrounding her head. Her power within Sigil is so absolute that many people think she's a god, but don't you dare try to worship her because she'll either flay you alive or maze you, which means you're being sent to an infinitely complex maze where you'll most likely die. Part of what makes her so powerful is her ability to control what comes in and out of the city. She can literally bar gods from entering. But despite all that power, we don't really know that much about her, and I personally love the mystery and concept behind her. As Cook would say, the point about the Lady of Pain is that she isn't really anything. The minute something gets quantified, it loses its reality and becomes nothing but a game mechanic. This is a case where less is more. The thing about the lady is that she has a fairly hands-off approach to running things, and the city is dominated by factions, or sometimes referred to as philosophers with clubs. Cook's approach to the planes was to make belief a core theme, and in this universe, belief wasn't merely abstract, but a tangible force that permeated everything and everyone. Imagine being in a setting where you know for a fact gods exist, and you can understand why the factions are so important in a world where the planes of existence become a battleground for competing fates. All these factions are based on ideas taken to extremes, and Cook has said that the inspiration behind the factions was, quote, "They are all the bad philosophy ideas that we used to argue about in college after a few too many beers." You have groups like the Sign of One, where they believe that everyone is the center of their own reality, and the Society of Sensation, who prioritize experience through the senses as the only way to achieve enlightenment. These factions are fascinating and a core part to many Planescape campaigns. Okay, so why the heck do we call this Planescape and not the Lady of Painscape? Well, that is because the most captivating aspect of the setting is that it not only encompasses just Sigil, but literally everything. It can be overwhelming, but basically, in the Planescape universe, there are a few different planes that make up the setting. To give an extremely simplified explanation, let's start with the most familiar, the Prime Material Plane. You can basically imagine your standard fantasy world and where most D&D adventures begin. It's home to countless worlds and universes like the Forgotten Realms and Krynn. Okay, easy, right? Echoing the material plane are the Feywild and Shadowfell, which are reflections of the material plane. The Feywild burst with vibrant nature and magical creatures, while the Shadowfell is its stark opposite, totally devoid of color and life. Next are the inner planes, which represent the raw elemental forces of water, earth, fire, and so on. They surround and permeate the material plane. Where the inner planes touch the material plane, unique civilizations have formed, such as the Brass City in the Plane of Fire, which are incredibly cool and fleshed out settings in their own right. Now, there's also the ethereal and astral plane, which are kind of like conduits between planes, and they act as pathways. Beyond the elemental inner planes lie the outer planes, which are the home of the gods, each reflecting a different alignment. Elysium, for instance, embodies pure good and happiness, while Limbo is the essence of chaos, a swirling vortex of fragmented landscapes and elemental forces. The planes are vast and diverse, and this immense variety is what makes Planescape so incredible. It gives the player an excuse to throw literally almost anything in your games. Demons? Sure thing, we got you covered. Greek gods? No problem. You want robots? Sure, just throw it in there along with the kitchen sink. Sigil itself sits in the Outlands, a neutral territory in the middle where travelers and traders from all planes converge. Towns on the edges of the Outlands act as gateways for each of the 17 outer planes. Each gate town is influenced by their respective plane, and if a particular town becomes too aligned with the other plane, it could physically become a part of that plane. So I totally understand if you have a hard time visualizing all of this. So to imagine how the heck all of this comes together, you can imagine it as a giant circle with the prime material at the center. And this entirety is known as the Great Wheel. So this incredible and deep world is all delivered with some amazing writing. The writing itself and the voice of the Planescape setting and Sigil is the cant, and this included its own slang and manner of speech, which could be confusing. And the accompanying books had no time for your confusion, emphasizing the need for the players to, quote, get a clue, which contrasted sharply with the dry tone of early D&D manuals. From the outset, Planescape shows rather than tells, its prose and imagery reflecting the plane's indifference toward newcomers. It doesn't need to adapt. They must adapt to it. So if all this Planescape talk has you itching for some D&D or tabletop action of your own, you might be interested in checking out today's sponsor, Laserox. They make gorgeous, handcrafted RPG accessories and board game inserts. They sent me this beautiful wooden dice tray with a real leather lining and this sleek dice shield box, which I cannot wait to bust out at my next gaming session. The craftsmanship is amazing with elegant details and exotic hardwoods, and soon you'll even be able to get them personalized with engravings, which I know will make some incredible gifts. I'm happy to help support these guys, and if you're interested, feel free to check out the link below. Alright, back to Planescape. Okay, so all of this is just scratching the surface of Planescape, but let's take a quick break to explore the other media in the setting, which is shockingly very little. The most notable is, of course, drumroll please, Planescape Torment in 1999, often hailed as one of the greatest video games ever made. I'm willing to bet a ton of people got into the setting of Planescape from the game, and it's probably one reason why it's remained in the public consciousness. The game was headed by the legendary Chris Avalon, and what makes the game so good is the story. We play as the Nameless One, waking up from a terrible hangover. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I mean, death, with no memory of his past. The use of amnesia here is probably one of the best uses of amnesia in a game, and propels him on a quest to uncover his past, collecting a cast of eccentric companions along the way, including a talking skull and a reformed succubus. The game's setting constantly subverts expectations, challenging players' preconception of traditional fantasy tropes. The look and the feel of the game perfectly captures the bizarre nature of Planescape. Even the side quests are interesting, like helping an alleyway give birth to more alleyways. Instead of focusing on the typical good versus evil conflict, the game delves into deeper questions like what can change the nature of a man. This exploration of themes elevates the game beyond a fantasy adventure and into a thought-provoking experience that continues to resonate with people even today. Now, I could spend hours talking about this game, and in fact, many YouTubers have. I highly recommend Grimbeard's video on it if you're interested. Anyway, although not as successful as Baldur's Gate, it was well received and could have spurred more interest in Planescape, but unfortunately the setting had already been discontinued by the time the game was released. But we'll get to that more later, believe that. There was, however, a spiritual successor in the form of Torment, Tides of Numenera. The game itself takes heavy inspiration from Torment, but it's not set itself in the Planescape setting. Now, most people are familiar with the game, but there are in fact other adaptations out there which are excellent in their own right, but don't get too excited because this is nothing like the hundreds of Dragonlance novels. In 1997, Troy Denning's Pages of Pain captures the harshness of the setting and some pretty interesting concepts, particularly about, well, pain. A significant portion is often told from the lady's perspective, offering unique insights into her character and really captures the essence of Planescape. The Blood War trilogy by Robert King started in 1996 and is slightly more of a mixed bag. Now, both Blood Wars and Pages of Pain are strangers in a strange land type stories, but Blood Wars is a bit more hectic with just a lot going on, but it does have some really interesting characters and scenes from the planes. We also can't forget about the novelization of Planescape Torment and notably another title, Fire and Dust. Originally a rejected Planescape novel from 1996, author James Gardner has since made it available as a free online manuscript. This fan favorite, which is actually pretty highly regarded, is Planescape through and through, and I'll link the PDF of the full book in the description for those interested because it's free and online, so why not? It's not just novels though. If you're really into the setting, there's also Blood Wars, which is an out-of-print collectible card game produced by TSR. Now, I couldn't get my hands on this, but looking online, it seems to have some really gorgeous artwork. So that covers the majority of Planescape adaptations, which is not a lot, right? You may have noticed a pattern here. Some of these spin-offs emerged around the mid-1990s and then mysteriously disappeared. To understand this, let's jump back into the timeline of the Planescape campaign setting within the broader context of D&D history. Is everyone ready? Because as is with a lot of things in D&D history, this is about to get a bit messy. So remember that Planescape was originally released for AD&D 2nd edition in 1994. While initially popular and praised for its wildly unique setting, unfortunately by that point, TSR on the whole faced huge financial difficulties and was purchased by Wizards of the Coast in 1997. Now this led to a significant shift in D&D's direction. Previously, TSR's rapid release of campaign settings like Dark Sun and more, and of course Planescape, proved unsustainable. I mean, they were releasing at least one campaign setting a year. So Wizards took one look at this and decided to just clean house. So as a result of this, the Planescape setting experienced a gradual decline in new material, culminating in the controversial Faction War event of 1998, which effectively discontinued the official line. This was a significant blow to the setting's momentum as it had been gaining traction, not only in tabletop, but also in video games. Now, this also impacted the Planescape card game I mentioned, and that was shelved after Wizards acquired TSR, likely to make space for their flagship card game, Magic the Gathering. Now, with the release of 3rd edition D&D, Wizards focused on other projects, although a new manual of the Planes was eventually published. After that, things were pretty quiet for a long time. But this was not the end of Planescape's journey. In 2023, Wizards released Planescape Adventures in the Multiverse, a 3-volume box set that brought Planescape to 5th edition. It consists of 3 books, including a setting guide, a monster book, and a campaign which takes characters from level 3 to 18. While the tone of 5e Planescape leans more toward humor and lightheartedness than its predecessors, the setting retains much of its captivating charm and intricate details. It's obvious that it's been done by people who just love the setting. Although some people have noted that the box set focuses more on the Outlands than the broader Outer Planes. However, the general feeling among players seems to be pretty positive, although maybe not overwhelmingly positive. But this is great news because it's a tremendous improvement over the disappointing recent releases like Ravenloft. So with the recent release of Adventures in the Multiverse and the immense success of Baldur's Gate 3, we could be in a place where Planescape could easily get some other adaptations. With the rising popularity of RPGs like Disco Elysium, which itself took heavy inspiration from Planescape, it's obvious that there is a market for more Torment-like games. And the Planescape universe is brimming with rich ideas and themes that are just begging to be translated beautifully into games, novels, or other media. But of course, there's always a risk involved with any new project, especially when revisiting a beloved franchise. It is honestly shocking that the setting has been criminally underexplored, but any new title could easily fail to capture the essence of what made the originals so special. So even if we never get anything more in the world, what we already have is pretty great. So at least we can be happy for that. So whatever happened to Planescape? Even after 30 years, Planescape's enduring legacy is a testament to its innovation and was just a revolutionary step for D&D as a whole, offering a truly original setting that transcended the traditional tropes. And for those who embraced its oddities, Planescape quickly became the most rewarding and interesting role-playing experience available, even to this day pretty much. The setting's infinite possibilities allowed for endless creativity, and I mean this in the best possible way insane stories. Despite facing challenges after Wizards acquired the franchise, with the recent 5e release, it shows that Planescape is far from forgotten, and in fact, may just have a bright future. So until next time, 1. Remember that everything in life is circular. 2. There is a center of everything. And thirdly, well, let's just all try not to get mazed. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate all the support as I try to get this channel off the ground. Huge shout out to my patrons. You guys are the best. And if you want to check out more ways to support me, please check out my Patreon link below. As always, if you have any suggestions about what you want me to cover next, just drop a comment. It's always really cool to see what you guys have to say. Thanks again. I'll see you next time.